Go on, laughed old Nose. I ought to have known you were having a game with me. Don't be ridiculous. Smith was a quiet, slow boy then. He makes more noise now. A bit of a songster, I hear, but he's cautious. No risks for him. Chews twice before he swallows, and always did, if you take my meaning. I do, master. Well, if you won't believe it with Smith, I can't help you. Perhaps it doesn't matter much now. Will it ease your mind if I tell you that the star is back in the box now? Here it is. Prentice was wearing a dark green cloak, which Noakes now noticed for the first time. From its folds he produced a black box and opened it under the old cook's nose. There is the star, master, down in the corner. Old Noakes began coughing and sneezing, but at last he looked into the box. So it is, he said. At least it looks like it. It is the same one, master. I put it there myself a few days ago. It will go back in the great cake this winter. Aha! Said Noakes, leering at Prentice, and then he laughed till he shook like a jelly. I see, I see. 24 children and 24 lucky bits, and the star was one extra. So you nipped it out before the baking and kept it for another time. You were always a tricky fellow, nimble one might say, and thrifty. Wouldn't waste a bee's knee of butter. Ha ha ha. So that was the way of it. I might have guessed. Well, that's cleared up. Now I can have a nap in peace. He settled down in his chair.
Lies.
Mind that prentice man of yours plays you no tricks. The artful don't know all the arts, they say. He closed his eyes. Goodbye, master, said Prentice, shutting the box with such a snap that the cook opened his eyes again. Noakes, he said, your knowledge is so great that I have only twice ventured to tell you anything. I told you that the star came from Fairy, and I have told you that it went to the smith. You laughed at me. Now at parting, I will tell you one thing more. Don't laugh again. You are a vain old fraud, fat, idle, and sly. I did most of your work. Without thanks, you learned all that you could from me, except respect for Fairy and a little courtesy. You have not even enough to bid me good day. If it comes to courtesy, said Noakes, I see none in calling your elders and betters by ill names. Take your fairy and your nonsense somewhere else. Good day to you, if that's what you're waiting for. Now go along with you. He flapped his hands mockingly. If you've got one of your fairy friends hidden in the kitchen, send him to me and I'll have a look at him. If he waves his little wand and makes me thin again, I'll think better of him, he laughed. Would you spare a few moments for the king of fairy? The other answered. To Noakes' dismay, he grew taller as he spoke. He threw back his cloak. He was dressed like a master cook at a feast, but his white garments shimmered and glinted, and on his forehead was a great jewel like a radiant star. His face was young but stern. Old man, he said, you are at least not my elder. As to my better, you have often sneered at me behind my back. Do you challenge me now openly? He stepped forward, and Noakes shrank from him, trembling. He tried to shout for help, but found that he could hardly whisper. No, sir, he croaked. Don't do me a harm. I'm only a poor old man.
Don't do me a harm.
His face softened. Alas, yes, you speak the truth. Do not be afraid. Be at ease. But will you not expect the King of Fairy to do something for you before he leaves you? I grant you your wish. Farewell. Now go to sleep. He wrapped his cloak about him again and went away towards the hall, but before he was out of sight, the old cook's goggling eyes had shut and he was snoring. When the old cook woke again, the sun was going down. He rubbed his eyes and shivered a little, for the autumn air was chilly. Ugh, what a dream, he said. It must have been that pork at dinner.
Is he thin?
Dream. From that day, he became so afraid of having more bad dreams of that sort that he hardly dared eat anything for fear that it might upset him. And his meals became very short and plain. He soon became lean, and his clothes and his skin hung on him in folds and creases. The children called him Old Rag and Bones. Then for a time he found that he could get about the village again and walk with no more help than a stick, and he lived many years longer than he would otherwise have done. Indeed, it is said that he just made his century, the only memorable thing he ever achieved. But till his last year he could be heard saying to any that would listen to his tale, alarming you might call it, but a silly dream, when you come to think of it. King of Fairy, why he had no wands, and if you stop eating you grow thinner, that's natural, stands to reason, there ain't no magic in it. The time for the 24th feast came round. Smith was there to sing songs and his wife to help with the children. Smith looked at them as they sang and danced, and he thought that they were more beautiful and lively than they had been in his boyhood. For a moment it crossed his mind to wonder what Alf might have been doing in his spare time. Any one of them seemed fit to find the star, but his eyes were mostly on Tim, a rather plump little boy, clumsy in the dancing, but with a sweet voice in the singing. At table he sat silent, watching the sharpening of the knife and the cutting of the cake. Suddenly he piped up, Dear Mr. Cook, only cut me a small slice, please. I've eaten so much already, I feel rather full. All right, Tim, said Alf. I'll cut you a special slice. I think you'll find it go down easily. Smith watched as Tim ate his cake slowly, but with evident pleasure, though when he found no trinket or coin in it, he looked disappointed. But soon a light began to shine in his eyes, and he laughed and became merry, and sang softly to himself. Then he got up and began to dance all alone with an odd grace that he had never shown before. The children all laughed and clapped. All is well, then, thought Smith. So you are my heir. I wonder what strange places the star will lead you to. Poor old Noakes. Still, I suppose he will never know what a shocking thing has happened in his family. He never did. But one thing happened at that feast that pleased him mightily. Before it was over, the master cook took leave of the children and of all the others that were present. I will say good-bye now, he said. In a day or two I shall be going away. Master Harper is quite ready to take over. He is a very good cook, and as you know, he comes from your own village. I shall go back home. I do not think you will miss me. The children said good-bye cheerfully, and thanked the cook prettily for his beautiful cake. Only little Tim took his hand and said quietly, I'm sorry. In the village there were in fact several families that did miss Alf for some time. A few of his friends, especially Smith and Harper, grieved at his going, and they kept the hall
Tears emojis.
and they kept the hall gilded and painted in memory of Alf. Most people, however, were content. They had had him for a very long time and were not sorry to have a change. But old Noakes thumped his stick on the floor and said roundly, He's gone at last, and I'm glad for one. I never liked him. He was artful, too nimble, you might say.
What is wrong with this dude? Like, in all honesty.
That's the end of it.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I have to record for 10 seconds after because of my
That's
weird
So that alleviate
recording
your
thing.
sadness.
Sarah, you guys have this mechanical toothbrush in there, right? You guys have this toothbrush.
Do we?